Yo, what's up guys? So this will be part 5 of the Ask Me Anything answer segments for this Q&A in June 2018, and I was recording the first 4 parts all last night. Talked for like 2 hours, man. You guys asked a lot of questions and I wanted to give you good answers, so I hope you appreciate the answers I gave you. But I wanted to save one question that was asked by Immortal Peace for its own specific video because it's highly political. And I know a lot of you guys out there don't want to talk about politics, don't want to hear or see politics. So if you're not into that stuff, just skip this video, man. And that's why I saved this one for the last video in the series. So warning for you guys who don't want to deal with this subject matter, click off now and just have nothing to do with this video. But for those of you who do watch it, I ask that you keep the comments section civil, all right? So let's not get into a shoving match and, get into a bunch of crazy shit. I don't want to block a bunch of people, and I just don't want to have to monitor the comments section like that. I'm way too freaking busy with projects right now. In fact, I'm behind on a couple. So anyway, I just wanted to preface with that. Also, guys, we could disagree on stuff. It doesn't mean we got to hate each other, right? We can have a good adult civil discussion, argument, whatever, and we can move back to boxing after this. So I promised you guys anything, anything goes. You can tell my voice is a little messed up from talking for 2 hours last night doing these videos, so bear with me. But I promised you anything goes, and I want to hold it to that promise. So this question was asked, and I want to answer it because I promised you guys anything was game. So here we go. From Mortal Peace, he asks, I saw you like Candace Owens' tweet. Wondering whether you consider yourself politically savvy or just a passive consumer. Do you see yourself aligning more with the right-wing mentality, maybe libertarianism? How do you view current social movements such as cops murdering blacks, mostly without repercussion, and also the current child migrant scandal happening now? Whoa, loaded question, right? Mortal Peace, you asked some tough questions there, so expect some tough answers. But let's break this down into sections. Let's start with Candace Owens. So for those of you who don't know who Candace Owens is, I guess I'd describe her as a YouTuber. Look her up, man. Look her up on YouTube. Candace Owens. I think she calls her page Red Pill Black. So she's a young black woman, and she identifies as a conservative. And she identified her whole life as a lefty, a liberal, a progressive, whatever word you want to use. I think the term liberal has been hijacked by the modern left, the people running the modern left establishment. So she always identified as a progressive. And she came to find out through a series of events, and I'll let you go research. I'm not going to explain it all here. Certain things that happened to her that she saw what's happening on the modern left and what's going on, and she was a victim to some of the dirty tactics and the political things that go on social media platforms and such. And she got, as she puts it, woke. She had an awakening, an opening in her brain, and realized that she had believed the things she had believed her whole life because she was told to do so. She was indoctrinated into that belief system almost like a religion. And now she kind of realized, hey, I have these political viewpoints. But she was told by a lot of people that you're not allowed to have those viewpoints because of your demographics. It's against the law. And so she started a YouTube channel talking about her experiences and her beliefs, and she's been on just about every other YouTube channel, all the big ones, Dave Rubin, his podcast, Joe Rogan, those sorts of guys. She's been on, I think, like Fox News and CNN and all that stuff as well. She's definitely making the rounds. What do I think of her? I think she's a bit of an opportunist, and I don't really blame her for that. Get it while the getting is good, like I understand that, but she is a little bit of an opportunist. And politically, I disagree with her on a lot of her viewpoints. She's too conservative. She's too far right for me in some of her viewpoints, and I completely disagree with her. I think Joe Rogan put her to task on some stuff while she was on his show, and called her out on some stuff that, that she was saying that, quite frankly, was just kind of ridiculous. However, I do agree with a lot of things she says, particularly when it comes to race, identity politics, how the left is no longer liberal in this country, and the entertainment, media, social media, Hollywood, university system complex as a whole does a lot of things that disproportionately hurts black people and our society in general when it comes to race relations. It's regressive, not progressive. And at one point, it was the right that was doing that and dividing people by demographics and teaching people to view themselves and others that way. It's now the modern left doing that. So this takes me to the second part of your question, where you were asking, do I consider myself politically savvy or just a passive consumer? And how do I identify myself politically? So I would say that I've spent countless hours studying certain political subjects. There's certain things I pass over because I really don't give a shit. But there are a lot of things that are important to me, particularly the social issues, and I've spent a lot of time studying them on my own. I've spent a lot of time studying not just the current subject matter, but the history behind it, the origins, where it started. And I've spent an infinite amount of time studying the facts and data. Because the bottom line is this, guys. Everyone has feelings. Everyone has personal experiences. I can't quantify your feelings. I can't quantify your personal experiences, and vice versa. What we can quantify are facts and data. And I think so many people get stuck in their own head and in their own bubble, in their own think tank with people who think the exact same way they do. And they live in a space that is based solely on feelings and experiences. And if you surround yourself with people who have similar life experiences to you, well, you're all going to have the same feelings about subjects because you've experienced it the same way. But when you break outside of that and seek out individuals who have different feelings, different personal experiences, and you actually take in the totality of facts and data and information available, that's how you broaden your mind, that's how you grow, that's how you learn things. And that's what I like to do in the political sphere. And if you notice, this is generally the way I conduct everything in my life. Take it back to boxing, look at the recent Canelo-Clenbuterol situation. When everything first broke and I took a position of, hey, let's give Canelo a chance, let's see all the information, let's take everything in. At this point, there's not enough to say he's guilty, etc., etc. There were YouTube channels making 2-hour-long videos about me ripping the shit out of me because I wouldn't bash Canelo. And these videos had a very, very elementary way of looking at things. And they were comparing the Canelo situation and my response to it, which was only weeks old, to the Alexander Povetkin situation, which was over a year timeline of events with a lot of, here's that word again, nuance. And they were looking at it from a place of feelings and experience in their little bubble, their little think tank, their little biased way of looking at it without even knowing all the facts and data of the information yet. So I waited and processed all of that information and talked to people with different points of view, with different pieces of information and data. I put it all together, and then I came out with my stance on the entire situation. And those of you who subscribe to Ring Magazine, you read my piece in the magazine, which, by the way, I've gotten great reviews on that piece. And I've had some very, very notable award-winning authors in boxing, guys who have been journalists for decades, message me, text me, email me, etc., saying that I did a great job. So, you know, that means a lot to me. Anyway, that was a tangent. But I just wanted to provide that example to show you that's how I approach things in my life. That's how I approach relationships, friendships, work, everything. Same thing with politics. So I can't align myself with the modern right because I'm not religious. I'm not a gun nut. And although the origins of the Republican Party and which actually stems from traditional liberalism in some ways, but the original mission statement, if you will, of that party, I think it's been perverted and hijacked by people who are pushing certain things, and it's become the party of what would Jesus do? I'm not a religious guy, so I can't side with that party. On the same way, you know, with the Democrats, the origins of what that party stood for, its mission statement, has been completely hijacked, and it's become the party of we hate white people and see people by their race, their gender, their sexual preference, their socioeconomic status, their religion, their culture, their heritage first, and then see them as an individual second. And then there's the, you know, there's religion on the left too. That's an important note. So the right has their religion. At least I'm going to keep it to this country, guys. I'm not going to go global with this because there's differences. But here in America, the modern Republican Party is very much, at least not all of it, there is a very, very moderate, more fiscally conservative, traditional side of the Republican Party, and their position isn't that wacky. But there's this the loudest part of the Republican Party right now that's kind of hijacked the party, that's very much about religion, and everything is based upon what would Jesus do, and that affects the way that they look at things like gay marriage, even guns and stuff to a certain degree. Like every subject comes through that sphere first. So there's a lot of religion, and I want a complete separation of church and state. I want absolutely no mention of God or religion on our money, in our public buildings, anything like that. It should be completely removed, right? So you'd think, oh, well, that means I'm riding with the left. But here's the thing. The modern Democratic Party has their own religiosity. Their form of religion is white privilege theory, Black Lives Matter, the progressive stack, the hierarchy of privilege, the oppression Olympics, male privilege, and they push things that aren't true. Like, you've probably heard the term, women make 75 cents on the dollar for every man, or maybe it's 77 cents or 70-something cents for every dollar a man makes. And Obama, when he ran on his re-election, and then Hillary Clinton in her last election, her last campaign, I should say, they pretty much ran with that statistic. But that's a faulty statistic that has been disproven. It is derived by taking every female of a certain age and comparing them to every male of a certain age, and that's the number they come up with. When you actually compare men and women who have the same job, the same experience, are in the same age group, the same bracket, if you go 50, 60 years old and above, yes, there's a difference. But when you get to 40 and below, it's even. And in fact, there are cases where in several major American cities where if you're under 30 years old and you're a college-educated woman, you're making more than men in your field. And there are plenty of studies that show this, guys. I'm not going to post all the links. Go do the research. It's out there. So the narrative that women don't make what men make, well, that's a false narrative when you actually start to break down the data. But people with lazy thinking, well, these politicians, they're not lazy. They know what they're doing. They're trying to manipulate you. They take this statistic and they throw out all the variables and everything, and they just take two raw numbers and compare them. But if you took that same logic and put it in a courtroom, it would get thrown out of court. If you put it in a science lab, you wouldn't get anywhere with your experiments because it's faulty logic. But they're appealing to people's feelings and personal experiences. And what does that go to? Religiosity. So there is absolutely a religiosity on the left as well. And I would argue their religiosity right now in this country is more dangerous, and it's actually doing more to divide people, particularly young people. And I'm really concerned that there's a generation of people growing up that lack critical thinking skills to decipher between the bullshit and get to the root of the information and take in all the facts and data and then process before it just seems like they just want to immediately jump to this visceral gut reaction, this emotional thing in the front of their brain before taking every information in. So how do I identify myself politically after all this ranting? I guess if I had to put a definition on it, classical liberal. Pretty much the way I feel is, dude, personal liberties. what makes you happy as an adult, as long as you're not hurting anybody and you're doing it in the privacy of your own home or whatever, go for it. I could give a shit what you do in the privacy of your own home. And it is not my right to tell you how to live your life. It is not your right to tell me how to live my life. And that includes the government. So I support gay marriage. I'm not gay. I don't want to see two gay guys have sex. But if that makes them happy and they want to get married, good for them. I don't smoke weed. I don't do drugs. But I support legal weed. If that makes people happy and they're doing it in the privacy of their own home, do I want you getting stoned and driving on the highway with your kids in the backseat, your baby in the backseat? No. But if you're doing it in the privacy of your own home, or maybe you're working out, and I know a lot of guys like to get zooted before they work out, have at it, man. I could care less. So there are a lot of things like that I support. That is, those are liberal positions. I'm pretty much a social liberal. But I can't ride with the progressive stack, oppression Olympics, these movements, if you will, these social sciences and social movements that are pushed, that are based on faulty logic and are divisive and regressive in the way that they're not bringing people together. They're bringing like-minded people together who are always going to be together because they have the same mindset. But they're actually dividing people, and in the worst way. They're dividing people by race, sex, gender, all that stuff. That's bad, man. That's really, 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 really bad. That's way more dangerous than some NRA member who likes to shoot, targets with his kids at a gun range. Does he need to have 15 guns? No. But is he hurting anybody? No. It's not that dude who's going out and committing mass shootings. Do we need stricter gun laws in America? Yes. We need much stricter gun laws, federal stricter gun laws in America. So I'm not suggesting that we don't, but per statistics, okay, and just society, the Orwellian people that are literally brainwashing people. It's not that NRA member dude on the right who has 24 guns and likes to shoot things on the weekend. It's the people who run the media, academia, the entertainment complex, the social media platforms, and all hang out together and strategize and work together. Guys, I lived in LA for a decade. I work in the entertainment business. I work in media. I've been at parties. I've seen Bill Maher hanging out, sniffing coke in the coke room at a Hollywood Hills party with and I don't mind putting Bill's name out there because he admits he does this shit, but he was doing it with a very well-known cable news personality. I'll just leave it at that. I won't even give the person's gender. Pretty well known in a coke room and talking and hanging out. And this person is on their program doing the news every night. I've seen that stuff. I've been at the parties and seen that happen, right? So like these people hang out together. They all live on the coast. They live in Los Angeles. Some of them live in San Francisco, and they hang out together. They strategize together. Yes, people on the other side do that as well, but they don't have as loud of a megaphone to get their message out there. So I'm independent. But which side do I think is being more divisive and actually doing more damage right now? The left. And that's why I beat up on the left more, because I identify socially more on that side. And when your own side is screwing things up, you're quicker to call out that side, right? And that's why you saw me like Candace Owens' tweet, and you've probably seen me like a lot of her tweets and comment on some of her videos. Even though I don't agree with a lot of things she says. Okay, so let's get to the most loaded part of your question. How do I view current social movements such as cops murdering blacks? Okay, I was not aware that there's a social movement right now of cops murdering blacks. So just the way you worded that question, dude, and maybe I'm totally wrong on this, okay? But that is such a loaded way of wording a question. To me, that reads as a political statement. That reads as you stating something, wanting to get a specific answer back because you already have your mind made up about how you feel. You didn't say, how do you feel about policing in America and police shootings in general? How do you feel about, possible racial undertones or bias? You didn't word it that way, dude. You said, current social movements such as cops murdering blacks. I'm reading that word for word. So try to understand that sort of question forces me to preemptively give all this information up front just to address that part of your question before I can even answer it. Because that's such a biased way of loading up a question and wording it. So there is no current social movement of cops running around looking for young, innocent black people to murder. That's not happening. Does it happen sometimes? Yes, it does. Is it when I think social movement or when I think epidemic, if you look up the definitions of those terms, it's something that's happening a lot. It's something that is the norm. It's common. It's becoming the norm, right? So an epidemic would be, a certain disease. Like there was a flu epidemic last year. The flu was really, really bad, right? And that's a poor example. I'm just brainstorming here, but I'm just trying to say, like, police shootings happen too much in this country. I agree with you. And we could do a much better job of policing in general. I think that cops could be trained to shoot to maim instead of shooting to kill. I think that every single cop car, every single cop should have a camera on them. Should have I don't care if it's right here on their uniform or on their helmet, whatever it is, on the dash of their car. And many of them do now, but all of them should. I think there's a million things we could do to police better and make the way our police system works much better. I also think that, systems like the Fraternal Order of Police and things like that protect police in a certain way that makes it very, very hard to properly prosecute when there is a wrongful death situation. They're protected much like the way teachers' unions protect really shitty teachers. Just the way lobbyists and everything in DC works to protect politicians in the money system that is going on in our government right now. So it's not just with the police, dude. With the police, that gets the most news because it tugs at people's heartstrings. Where am I going to go again? Feelings, personal experiences. But it's happening in all facets of our world and our government right now. It's not just with the police. But you hear about it the most with police because, again, it generates ratings and it generates ad revenue for these media outlets. But the actual data does not support your claim, brother. So I'm going to post some links. One of the links is going to be a database that has tracked all police shootings in America. It goes back to 2015. I'll stick with 2018 for right now. At the time I'm recording this, here in June of 2018, so far this year, there have been 504 Americans shot and killed by police this year. 504, which means we're on pace, obviously, for 1,000. That's a lot. That's far too many. But it pales in comparison. It actually pales in comparison to the amount of shootings of citizens killing each other in this country. And I'm not even going to go into those statistics. Some of them have just become talking points. That's why I'm going to ignore it. But there is some validity to them. The amount of police shootings, when you compare it to the actual amount of violent crime citizens commit against each other in this country, pales in comparison. Much smaller number. But either way, 504 shot and killed by cops this year. That's a lot. And that is an issue. But you've probably been taught and conditioned by the media to think that of that 504 people shot and killed by cops, probably 450 of them are black. Guess what? 92 were black. 504 people killed this year, 92 were black. That is 18%. 18% of the police shootings this year involved a black person being shot and killed. Now, I'm not going to go into the statistics of how many of the cops were black, whether the suspect was armed or unarmed. All of that is available on the database, and you can filter the data for yourself and see that, okay? But 18% of police shootings in this country are black. Black people make up 13% of the population. So there is a 5% higher disproportionate amount of police shootings versus representation in the population. I hear you. That is slightly disproportionate. And that's the media narrative that's going to be pushed, right? But here's what they're not going to tell you. Here's what they're not going to discuss. It's very, very similar to the women make 75 cents on the dollar statistic you hear. If you actually look at crime statistics and divide by race, you will find that black people, generally speaking, commit half of the murder in this country. 13% of the population commits almost 50% of the murder. That is way more disproportionate than how many are shot by police. You're talking a 5% spread, and over here you're talking a 30% spread, right? Then start looking at how many when police are shot and killed. And it's much, much lower than 504 this year. But there's actual databases where you can research that. How many police get shot a year? It's maybe about 100 or so. How disproportionately it is black people who shoot and kill police versus any other race. When you adjust for percentage of the population, you will find there is a disproportionately high amount of when police are shot. I'm going to say police shootings, but when they are shot and killed, it is a black perpetrator than the other way around. These are the statistics that are available. CIA website, FBI website, National Crime Victimization Surveys. Wherever city you live in, bro, look at your local and state authorities' crime statistics right there. It's all right there for you. These are trends that are not new. These are trends that go back decades. This is an extraordinarily complex subject. And to sum it all up, to truncate this extraordinary complex subject with all these different layers and nuance, my favorite word again, to sum it all up to social movements such as cops murdering blacks, that's not only dangerous, extremely dangerous, but it's actually disrespectful and undermines the true tragedy of when there are wrongful deaths and when bias may play a role, because those things do happen. It also undermines the reality of what's really going on, the real epidemic right now in Black America. The epidemic isn't cops shooting black people. The epidemic is how many young black men are getting involved in crime. And we can talk about the reasons why that might be happening. A lot of people will just say, racism, racism. That's what the media would tell you. That's what Hollywood would tell you. That's why every 6 months there's a movie Hollywood puts out that pretty much promotes that message. There's a grievance industry. These people make billions of dollars keeping people mad and angry and bitter and hating one another and not trusting one another. When the reality is, most people really just want to get along with everybody. Most people see things in the end very, very similarly and want the same things in life. But the media, Hollywood, academia, all of it, they are profiting billions of dollars, not M-B, billions of dollars a year, keeping people freaking mad. And you're just paranoid. And that's why you're not going to get the totality of the information and the data. And I'm just providing you a small sliver of it. But that statement, dude, social movements such as cops murdering blacks, that sounds religious to me. That sounds like a religious statement. That's the religiosity of the left I was talking about. And what's funny is when it goes to the progressive stack and you talk about white privilege and black oppression and all this, and people will say, well, most of these police shootings, even though it's not most, but they'll run with that narrative, even though I just disproved it. But most of these police shootings are young black men and blah, 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 right? So there must be white privilege because black people go to jail more than white guys and blah, 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 blah. You take that same principle and apply it to gender. Look at that same database that I'm going to post here. Over 90% of people that get shot and killed by police in this country are men. The overwhelming majority of the prison population is male. Yet, you never hear the media talking about that. You never hear the media saying there's female privilege because men go to jail more, men go to jail longer. You don't hear the right wing saying stuff like, well, men commit the majority of violent crime. They ignore that subject. They go to race. Why? Because race divides people. It gets people mad. It gets them clicking on websites, sharing information on Facebook, on Twitter, everything else, ad revenue. These people are making money off of making you angry and hateful, dude. Be very, very careful of that. Be very, very wary of that. Again, why don't we hear about sexual profiling? Do cops sexually profile men because more men get shot by cops, more men get arrested or assaulted by police? We never hear that term. Why? It goes against the progressive stack. It goes against the oppression Olympics because the media wants to promote that women are oppressed because they make 75 cents on the dollar for men, even though that has been debunked. It just goes in circles, bro. We can get lost. I could talk for hours about this. So, and by the way, look up interracial crime statistics. Not intra-racial, because yes, most murder happens within the same race. Most black guys that get murdered, it's by other black guys. Most white guys that get murdered, it's by other white guys. Well, no shit. But look up interracial violent crime statistics. It's all out there. FBI website, CIA website, they have tables. You can look at all this stuff and break it down. You can also read national crime victimization surveys and things like that. And again, look at your local state authorities and their crime statistics there in your jurisdiction. You are way more likely in this country to be a victim of crime who is not black, a victim of a violent crime perpetuated by a young black male than the other way around. And in many jurisdictions in this country, you are more likely per capita, not in raw numbers, per capita, when you adjust for percentage of population, you're much more likely to be a police officer shot, assaulted by a black man than the other way around. These statistics are out there. The media is not going to tell you this because there's no profitability in it. They're going to push a certain narrative. The dozen or so times a year where an unarmed, completely innocent black man is shot and killed by police. It's about a dozen or so times a year when you strip away everything and you get to unlawful, unjust, flat out murder. Those dozen or so stories the media is going to run with. CNN's going to do special panels with guest speakers and stuff like that. Netflix is going to do documentaries. There's going to be movies about it. There's going to be marches and protests that are funded by billionaires who prop up and control the media. And they're funding these things and making it look like organic grassroots movements, which maybe the actual very beginnings of were. But once these people get involved and get entangled in it, then it becomes a processed, generic political agenda driving machine. That's all it is. All of this stuff exists to make you mad. Yet it's a very, very minute percentage of what's really going on, dude. The epidemic, what's happening every day. Someone just died. Someone just died. Someone just died. Literally. That's not an exaggeration. When you look at what's going on in America, there are more people killing each other in our streets. There are more people dying from opioids that Big Pharma is pushing on to people, and both political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, are tied in with Big Pharma through the lobbyists who fund their freaking campaigns. There are more people dying from that, infinitely more, than this tiny fraction of people who get shot and killed by cops unlawfully, unarmed people who are unlawfully killed by cops. And even when you look at that tiny number, the majority of them are white. That tiny number, that gets people angry. It gets people talking. There's money to be made there. And it's a distraction from what's really killing so many more people and what's really dividing so many more people. They don't want you to see that shit, bro. They want you to see this little piece. They want you to retweet that tweet. They want you to post that video on your page. They want you to get that noise out there so they can do all this shit behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying there's a table of dudes sitting somewhere. I don't believe in the Illuminati, that they're just planning all this shit. Oh, we're the puppet masters. No, it's the system. That's what it is. If you get blinded and angry and paranoid about this little thing happening over there while ignoring all this shit that's being done to you, you're getting played, homie. You're getting played, and you're playing yourself. When you start to break through that noise and you start to see what is really going on, and you start taking care of your business, building up your money, building up your capital, building up your future for your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids, all that noise, it can't hold you down no more. You're free. Get free, bro. That's what Candace Owens is doing to a certain degree. Again, I don't agree with a lot of the shit she says. She's too far right for my taste. But in a certain way, I respect the hell out of her and her bravery, being a young black woman who's not afraid to free herself. That's why I like that tweet, bro.